If you truly had to start from zero in 2026, no capital, no network that writes checks for you, no viral shortcuts, what would actually matter? Not what people say on podcasts, not what worked in 2012, not what looks intelligent on Twitter. Charlie Munger never built wealth by chasing opportunity. He built it by refusing stupidity, by aligning his psychology with reality, and by playing a long game most people were emotionally incapable of sustaining. So forget the fantasy version of starting over. This is not about tactics. This is about rebuilding from first principles, the way Munger would. Let's begin where almost everyone gets it wrong. Starting from zero is not a financial problem. Starting from zero is not a money problem, it is a cognitive problem. Most people who believe they are starting from zero are not broke, they are mentally mispositioned. They have absorbed bad incentives, fragile expectations, and socially approved illusions about how wealth is created. Charlie Munger understood something uncomfortable. Capital is downstream from judgment. If I were starting with nothing in 2026, I would not obsess over income streams, investments, or leverage. I would obsess over eliminating blind spots. Because the fastest way to stay poor is to make decisions that feel reasonable but are structurally stupid. Munger's edge was never intelligence alone. It was the ruthless avoidance of error. He didn't ask, "How do I get rich fast?" He asked, "What behaviors reliably destroy intelligent people over time?" Then he built his life in the opposite direction. Starting from zero forces an advantage most people miss. You are not yet trapped by past decisions. No bloated lifestyle to defend. No ego invested in bad strategies. No identity built around being right. That is not a disadvantage. That is optionality. The real danger at zero is imitation. When people feel behind, they copy what looks successful. They chase crowded paths, fashionable skills, and narratives that reward optimism over accuracy. Munger despised this. He believed reality does not care how compelling your story sounds. So the first move is internal, rebuilding your decision-making framework, understanding incentives, studying human misjudgment, learning how compounding actually works, not financially but psychologically. Because impatience, envy, and social comparison destroy more wealth than bad math ever will. If you start with the wrong mental models, every dollar you earn will eventually leak away. If you start with the right ones, capital accumulation becomes almost boring. Munger often said that life gets better if you simply avoid being stupid instead of trying to be very smart. Starting from zero is your opportunity to do exactly that, before money amplifies your errors instead of your judgment. Eliminate stupidity before chasing gains. Before trying to get rich, Charlie Munger focused on not getting poor. That sounds trivial. It is not. Most financial ruin is not caused by bad luck or low income, but by avoidable stupidity repeated long enough. If I were starting from zero in 2026, my second move would be subtraction. Remove behaviors, structures, and commitments that create fragility. Eliminate bad debt that compounds against you. Reduce fixed costs that turn small mistakes into permanent damage. Avoid environments that reward impulsive decisions and punish patience. Munger believed in what philosophers call the via negativa, improvement by removal. You do not need brilliance to avoid disasters. You need discipline, humility, and the willingness to look boring. This is psychologically hard because the modern world celebrates visible action. Doing nothing looks like failure. Quietly avoiding error looks like laziness. Most people sabotage themselves through lifestyle inflation disguised as progress. A slightly higher income justifies a car, an apartment, subscriptions, and obligations that lock future choices. Flexibility disappears and risk tolerance becomes fake. You cannot take intelligent risks when your survival depends on constant cash flow. Another form of stupidity is complexity. Starting from zero, complexity is poison. Side hustles stacked on side hustles. Financial products you do not understand. Strategies that require constant monitoring. Each layer adds failure points. Munger preferred simple systems because reality is already complicated enough. You must also eliminate emotional liabilities. Envy makes you chase returns you do not understand. Fear makes you sell what you should hold. Social comparison forces premature decisions. None of these feel irrational in the moment. All of them quietly destroy compounding. The goal here is not asceticism, it is resilience. When your downside is limited, time starts working for you instead of against you. You gain the ability to wait, to learn, and to recognize real opportunities when they appear. Getting rich is optional. Staying solvent is mandatory. Munger knew that survival is the first compounding advantage. Starting from zero gives you the rare chance to build that foundation deliberately, before ambition tempts you into irreversible mistakes. Subtracting stupidity feels unproductive, but it compounds faster than ambition. Every avoided mistake preserves capital, energy, and reputation. Over years, this creates a quiet edge. You are still solvent and prepared while others explain losses. That is not caution, it is strategy. When uncertainty rises, optionality becomes priceless, especially for beginners starting late today only. Active income is not humiliation, it is leverage. The modern fantasy says freedom comes from passive income. Munger rejected that idea early. Before capital works for you, you must become productive in a way the market cannot easily replace. Starting from zero in 2026, active income is not a failure state. It is the engine. It buys time, learning, and optionality. People who rush toward passivity usually do so to escape discomfort, not because the math makes sense. Work is only a trap when it compounds nothing. The goal is not to work less immediately, but to work in a way that builds rare skills, reputation, and judgment simultaneously. Income without learning plateaus. Learning without income drains resilience. You need both. Most people choose careers based on status, familiarity, or safety. That is backward. The correct filter is asymmetry, where a marginal improvement in skill produces disproportionate economic value. Sales, technical problem solving, capital allocation, negotiation, and systems thinking all share this property. They scale with competence. If I were starting over, I would deliberately choose a domain that looks slightly uncomfortable but economically real. Something tied to cash flow, not applause. Something where performance is measurable, not political. This eliminates illusion quickly and accelerates feedback. Active income also disciplines behavior. When money is earned through effort, waste becomes visible. You feel the cost of bad decisions. This creates better investors later. People who start with windfalls or inheritances often skip this calibration phase and pay for it later. There is dignity in productive struggle when it is aligned with compounding. Munger admired people who quietly built usefulness before demanding rewards. He understood that independence is rented before it is owned. The objective of active income is not consumption. It is capital formation under controlled conditions. Low ego, high learning, limited downside. You are building a base from which future bets can be made without desperation. Passive income is the result of leverage, not the source of it. Inverting that order creates fragility. Starting from zero, your job is not to escape work. It is to convert work into leverage as efficiently as possible. This period may feel slow, but it builds anti-fragile confidence, sharper judgment, and real bargaining power, ensuring that when leverage appears, you recognize it calmly, size it rationally, and deploy it without ego, panic, or dependence on unstable markets and noisy narratives today. Become extremely good at something few people compete for. If I were starting from zero in 2026, I would not ask, what is hot? I would ask, where is competition thin and reality thick? Munger never chased crowded arenas. He looked for structural neglect. Most people misunderstand skill. They think it is talent or credentials. Munger saw skill as a deliberately built advantage, something earned through time, feedback, and disciplined avoidance of fashionable nonsense. The worst place to compete is where status is high and barriers are low. That is where effort is abundant and rewards are diluted. Social media fame, trendy tech stacks, and popular investment theses attract crowds because they promise identity, not because they deliver durable value. Instead, I would look for intersections. 2 or 3 skills that are individually common but rare in combination. Technical understanding plus sales judgment, financial literacy plus operational execution. Writing clearly plus deep domain knowledge. These combinations reduce competition without requiring genius. This approach feels slow at first. There is no immediate validation, no applause. But Munger understood that delayed recognition is a competitive advantage. Most people cannot tolerate it long enough to reap the rewards. Becoming extremely good requires ruthless focus. You cannot sample endlessly and expect mastery to emerge. You choose a narrow field, accept temporary monotony, and compound competence daily. This is uncomfortable in a culture addicted to novelty. Another mistake people make is over-optimizing credentials instead of capability. Degrees, certificates, and titles feel like progress because they are socially legible. Real skill is not. It only reveals itself through results. Munger trusted outcomes, not packaging. Starting from zero, this phase is critical because skill compounds before capital does. It increases earning power, negotiation strength, and opportunity flow. It also filters information better. You stop being fooled by stories and start seeing structure. The goal is not to be the best in the world. It is to be good enough in a space that others ignore. That creates pricing power. It creates resilience. It creates choice. Munger believed that life rewards those who quietly build unfair advantages while others chase visibility. If you do this correctly, opportunities start finding you. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. And consistency over long periods is how zero quietly turns into something substantial, without ever needing to look impressive along the way. Aggressive patience is an active strategy. Most people think patience means inactivity. Munger understood the opposite. Patience, when combined with preparation, is aggressive. It is a refusal to waste resources on low-quality opportunities simply to feel progress. Starting from zero in 2026, this principle becomes decisive. When capital is scarce, mistakes are expensive. Action bias is dangerous. Doing something feels productive, but often it is just movement without direction. Aggressive patience means you are constantly learning, observing, and refining judgment while resisting the urge to force outcomes. You study industries without investing. You watch markets without trading. You listen more than you speak. This is not passivity, it is reconnaissance. Most people cannot tolerate this phase. They feel invisible. They feel late. They feel stupid for not doing something. So they buy mediocre assets, start businesses without edge, or follow strategies they barely understand. They confuse motion with progress. Patience creates optionality. When you are not committed, you can choose. When you have cash, time, and clarity, you can wait for asymmetry. This is how good decisions feel unfair in hindsight. They were available only to those who were not already entangled. Another overlooked benefit of patience is psychological insulation. You stop reacting to noise. Market volatility becomes information, not threat. Other people's urgency no longer dictates your behavior. This emotional distance is a strategic asset. Aggressive patience also requires saying no repeatedly. No to good enough deals. No to partnerships that feel rushed. No to opportunities that demand immediate commitment without adequate understanding. Each no preserves energy for the yes that matters. Compounding does not reward constant activity. It rewards correctness sustained over time. A single well-timed decision can outweigh years of busy effort, but only if you are prepared to recognize it. Starting from zero, patience feels like delay. In reality, it is alignment. You are synchronizing your actions with reality instead of your emotions. That alignment reduces regret and increases confidence. When the right opportunity finally appears, patience flips into decisiveness. There is no hesitation because the groundwork is already done. Waiting was not avoidance, it was training, and training makes speed possible when speed actually matters most. Concentrate ruthlessly when probability is on your side. Diversification is often taught as wisdom. Munger treated it as context-dependent. He believed concentration is dangerous only when ignorance is high. When understanding is deep and odds are asymmetric, dilution becomes the real risk. Starting from zero in 2026, most people diversify too early. They spread limited capital across too many ideas to avoid discomfort. This feels prudent, but it guarantees mediocrity. Small advantages require focus to matter. Concentration does not mean recklessness. It means selectivity. You wait, sometimes for years, until an opportunity appears that you actually understand. Not because it sounds convincing, but because you can explain its drivers, risks, and failure modes without slides or slogans. Munger concentrated when three conditions aligned: simple economics, durable advantage, and a price that assumed pessimism. Miss one, and he waited. This discipline protected him from clever narratives and false precision. Most people fail here psychologically. They want action to justify effort. They want diversification to soothe anxiety. But spreading attention and capital thinly prevents meaningful learning. You never feel the consequences strongly enough to improve judgment. Concentration forces responsibility. When a decision matters, you think harder. You prepare more. You avoid self-deception because the cost of being wrong is visible. This sharpens reasoning faster than any book. Starting from zero, this principle applies beyond investing. Concentrate your career bets, your learning, your relationships. Scattered effort creates shallow progress. Focus creates depth, and depth creates leverage. The mistake is not concentration itself, but premature commitment. You do not concentrate before understanding. You prepare patiently, then act decisively. That sequence matters. Munger often held few positions, sometimes for decades, not because opportunities were rare, but because good ones required unusual alignment. He trusted that time would surface them. When you finally concentrate correctly, progress feels sudden to outsiders. They call it luck. In reality, it is delayed compounding of judgment. If I were starting from zero, I would accept long periods of apparent inactivity in exchange for rare moments of clarity and conviction. One or two well-sized decisions, made rationally, can dominate a lifetime of scattered effort. Concentration is not about bravado. It is about respect for probability. When the odds are clearly in your favor, hesitation is costly. When they are not, restraint is intelligence. Learning the difference is the real skill, and it takes years of preparation, humility, and emotional control to execute without self-destruction. Play the long game in an impatient world. The greatest unfair advantage today is not intelligence, capital, or access. It is time horizon. Most people operate under invisible deadlines. Bills, ego, social pressure, and comparison compress their decisions into short cycles. Munger deliberately stretched his. If I were starting from zero in 2026, I would treat impatience as systemic risk. Markets, careers, and relationships are increasingly optimized for speed, not durability. This rewards those who exit early and punishes those who stay rational under boredom. The long game is not passive optimism. It is structured endurance. You choose paths where progress compounds quietly and penalties for waiting are minimal. You accept delayed gratification not as virtue, but as strategy. People underestimate how destructive impatience is. It causes premature selling, career hopping, overtrading, and partnerships formed too fast. Each decision feels justified in isolation. Over time, they create volatility without upside. Munger understood that compounding requires uninterrupted time. Interruptions reset progress. Every time you abandon a well-chosen path too early, you destroy invisible momentum. Starting from zero, preserving momentum matters more than chasing acceleration. The long game also filters competition. Most people quit when results are not visible. They need feedback, applause, or reassurance. If you can operate without external validation, entire fields thin out around you. This applies to learning as well. Deep understanding takes years. Shallow knowledge arrives fast and expires quickly. The long game favors fundamentals, not tactics. Principles survive regime changes. Tricks do not. Playing long does not mean ignoring reality. It means choosing positions that survive volatility, careers that deepen instead of decay, investments that benefit from time rather than timing, relationships built on trust, not convenience. Munger often appeared inactive to outsiders. In reality, he was protecting optionality and waiting for inevitabilities to play out. He trusted math, incentives, and human behavior more than forecasts. Starting from zero, the temptation to rush is extreme. You feel late, you feel behind. That emotional pressure pushes you into fragile strategies. The long game neutralizes that pressure by shifting the frame. You stop asking what works now and start asking what will still make sense in 10 years. Fewer answers survive. Those that do are usually boring, underappreciated, and powerful. The long game does not feel heroic. It feels quiet, sometimes lonely, often dull. But it aligns with reality. And reality rewards those who respect its timelines. If you can outlast impatience, you inherit the compounding others abandon. Over decades, this is not subtle. It is decisive. Wealth is not accumulation. It is reduced dependence. Most people define wealth as a number. Munger defined it as independence. Not independence from work, but from forced decisions. The ability to wait. The ability to say no. The ability to choose timing instead of being ruled by it. If I were starting from zero in 2026, this would be the ultimate objective. Not luxury, not status, not even early retirement, but reduced dependence on fragile systems, unstable incentives, and other people's urgency. Money is only one tool for this. Skill is another. Reputation is another. Low fixed costs are another. Psychological self-control might be the most important of all. Wealth emerges when these align. Many high earners are poor in this sense. They make good money but live inside narrow corridors. They cannot slow down. They cannot change direction. They cannot tolerate uncertainty. Their income is high, but their optionality is low. True wealth increases your margin for error. Small mistakes do not cascade. Bad years do not destroy you. Temporary setbacks do not force permanent decisions. This resilience is invisible, but powerful. Munger admired simplicity because it reduced dependence. Fewer obligations, fewer explanations, fewer moving parts. Complexity makes you hostage to outcomes you cannot control. Simplicity widens your range of viable responses. Starting from zero gives you a rare chance to design for this deliberately. You can choose paths that trade speed for robustness. You can avoid structures that lock you into permanent motion. You can prioritize durability over appearance. This also changes how you view success. You stop chasing peaks and start building plateaus. Places where life remains acceptable even when things go wrong. This mindset is deeply anti-mainstream and profoundly stabilizing. Wealth, in this sense, compounds quietly. Each year, you need less validation. Each decision becomes calmer. Each opportunity is evaluated on its merits, not out of fear. You are harder to manipulate because urgency no longer controls you. Most financial advice ignores this because it is not flashy. It does not sell aspiration. It sells clarity. Munger understood that clarity is rare and therefore valuable. If you accumulate money without reducing dependence, you have built a fragile fortune. If you reduce dependence steadily, even modest capital becomes powerful. Starting from zero is not a curse, it is a clean slate, a chance to align money, time, and psychology around a single principle. Never let short-term pressure force long-term regret. That is not just how you get rich. It is how you stay free.